Good evening, Alpha Nation. Kindly get ready, grab your snacks and drinks, and find a perfect place in your comfortable home. And be ready to become significantly better through sustainable and accessible lifelong learnings together. Today's event is made possible with the help of our supportive and generous partners. Good evening, Alpha Nation. Kindly get ready, grab your snacks and drinks, and IXL CIE Review Center. Get an additional 500 off if you are a graduate of any Alpha Premium program. Grace Apparel PH. It's not the product we sell, but the words we share. You may visit them on their social media platforms at Grace Apparel PH. Startup Podcast PH. Tuos, the first Filipino cloud-based analytics platform. Get your free 90-day trial offer. Just visit their website at alpatuos.com for more updates. And Ingenier.org, empowering engineers, promoting innovation. We sell, but the words we share. Again, good evening, Alpha Nation. We're now down to the fourth episode of this year, Alpha TV, in pursuit of knowledge and continuous improvement with ASLEX PH Academy. So without further ado, it is my pride and honor to introduce our guest speaker for tonight's event. He is the founder and CEO of ASLEX PH Academy, a consulting firm in the Philippines and also an entrepreneur. Recently awarded the Asia CEO Award and Entrepreneur of the Year. He graduated cum laude at BSU with the bachelor's degree of Industrial Engineering, Master Black Belt at UP National Engineering Center, Certified Sprint Master at Brazil, year 2018, Doctor of Humanities at University of Oklahoma, year 2019. He also took his degree as a Master of Engineering at Mapua University and became Executive MBA at Quantic School of Business and AMP Technology. So, in year 2012, he became a certified industrial engineer top 4 and associate as an engineer at Philippine Technological Council. So, help me welcome our guest, Sir Felix Beroya. Good evening, Sir Felix. And became Executive MBA.
Hi, good evening everyone.
Sir Lex.
And hope you can hear and see me. Ayan. Sige po. If you can hear me, just to check the technicals before I jump into my discussion, can you send in the number to the chat box? Ayan. Para we can check also if the chat box is also working. Right. Okay. Seems it's not working since walang. Can you still hear me? Kasi wala ako nare-receive na. Ayun, meron na. Thank you. So let's just check whether people are around here. And we have a lot of seats pa available here at Zoom. So if you have like friends or like colleagues who would want to also join, please let them know. And we have a lot of seats available inside Zoom. Yeah. So maybe I'll drop here. Ayan. So you can share this directly, okay, and they can join the session. So let me first share my screen. Okay. Ayan. Okay. So let's just wait for a little longer while ayan. So medyo dumadami na tayo. Sayang kasi yung opportunity to learn, no? Okay. So thank you everyone. I actually, I missed this session since I haven't had any Alpha TV for the longest time, no? But now I've given another chance to share. And this time, this is something new. because most of the time I share about Lean Six Sigma and other continuous improvement methodologies. Now this time, this is not a totally new or totally alien topic to continuous improvement. So this is like something that you can integrate, or that something that we can integrate, no? And in this particular domain, or in this particular practice. Okay? And this is all about what? Change management. Okay? Maybe some of you here are working as an engineer or an analyst, or maybe a supervisor, or even a leader of an organization. Okay? And we all know that change is something that is always there. It's something that's inevitable. Diba? As the old saying goes, it's something that's inevitable. And for tonight, I'll be sharing some important and essential things about change management. And as the subtitle prescribes, what are the things or practices that is helpful in managing a successful change. Okay. Again, my name is Felix Concepcion Veroya. I'm the founder and CEO of Aztec Speech Academy, and I'll be your resource person for tonight. And okay, I have a little game here. So all you have to do is to take a photo of you, whether you're watching here at Zoom or outside Zoom, which is in our YouTube channel. So you can take a photo of you watching, share that photo. Of course, don't forget to tag our Facebook page, Aztec Speech Academy, or LinkedIn if you're gonna use LinkedIn as your platform. And please use the hashtag significantly better with change management. Okay. And we will choose 5 winners of 100 pesos GCash or Maya or PayMaya credits and access to our e-learning course called the New Normal Toolbox, worth 500 pesos. So yeah, I'm gonna give you some time to take and capture this so that you know the instruction. Okay. So if you would want to participate, so let's take a screenshot and make this as a reference. Right? So this is my profile, and I think I've been introduced pretty good earlier, so I'll skip this. And of course, what's up ahead? Okay. So basically what we will cover in the next 45 or 60 minutes is what is change, and what are the common types of change that we could encounter day in, day out. What is change management, of course? What is the process that we follow when we do change, or when we try to deliver change? Of course, there's going to be some use cases of successful and unsuccessful adaptation to change. And of course, I'll be sharing as well the best practices. What are the common challenges, and what are the workarounds to address these challenges? And finally, we will be doing some Q&A if time permits. Okay. Now let's start with this simple poll. Okay, I'm gonna change my screen from my PowerPoint to a browser that contains the instruction on how you can go and participate into this poll. You can go and head over to menti.com and use the code 8733135. And you can help me answer this question. Top 3 words that come into your mind when you hear the word change. So you have 3 times of you giving an answer of what is the word that comes on top of your head when you hear the word change. So this is an example of an analytical tool called word cloud. So whenever you input words, and when the word is repeated or given as a repeated answer, it will be larger compared to the other ones. So the size of the word would represent the number of times it has been given as an answer. So please, let's spend the next 2 to 3 minutes. Go to menti.com and use the code 87331305 so that you can participate answering this poll. Okay. I will also give you a direct link here at Zoom for our friends in YouTube. You can, of course, use the instruction and please try to participate. So menti.com and use the code 87331305. Okay, thank you everyone. I am now seeing your answers here. I can see answers like innovation, process, efficiency, transformation, better. Okay, let's wait for some more. All right, so you are seeing it live, the words and the number of votes to that word or to these words changes, right? Difference. Okay, I'm seeing software, I'm seeing improvement, I'm seeing innovation, new. Okay, so I think it's a tie between improvement, innovation, and transformation, but there's a little bit lead now. Okay. Okay. So 1 more minute. So we have ITIL. Okay. The one that is being used for ITS or information technology systems. We have risk, we have growth, we have modify, we have something new, we have new start. All right. Thank you, everyone. Keep the votes coming. And if we have chance later on, we will again go back to this board and see whether who emerged as the most frequent word that you thought when you hear the word change. All right. So going back to my deck. Okay, so change, as I mentioned, it's something that we always work with. It's something that we will always be working with. Okay, if you're a student, there are changes. When you graduated from senior high, of course you take your college course. There's a change. When you completed your first year of college education, you of course go to your second year and there are changes, right? When you graduated from being a student, becoming a young graduate, a professional, there are changes. When you spent a little, enough time, you got promoted, there are changes. When you got promoted, or when you decided to, settle down, marry, there are changes. So there's, changes in every phases of our life. But let's first contextualize the meaning of change. Okay, change, okay, can be described in so many ways. Number one, someone talked about different, okay, earlier. So change refers to the process of becoming different or making something different. So meaning there's a process that it follows so that a change or a difference can be manifested. That's one. Second would be change can also refer to the difference between two or more things or the process of transforming. Someone mentioned about transformation from one state or condition to another. Okay. And last, change can be thought of as movement from one place, condition, or state to another. So it's pretty much moving from one condition to the other. And of course, if there's movement, there's going to be a difference, or there has been a difference, correct? And there's a process. It tells us that this change thing, there's a process to it. So that's pretty much what change is all about. Now, what are the common types of change? I've been mentioning that, in every aspect or segment of your life, there's going to be change or there's going to be changes. Now, what are the common types of change? Number one, we have what we call structural. So here is the description. Changes to the formal structure of an organization, such as restructuring departments, changing reporting lines, or altering job roles and responsibilities. I have experienced this personally when I was still part of a multinational company. There has been a lot of, or there's been a series of merging and acquisition. So as one merger comes into the picture, there is always this sort of organizational change or structure change or org structure change. Okay, so that you'll be moved to one function to a new function, or to from one title to a new title, of course bearing a different, or it could be a little bit different or an entirely different role and responsibility. Okay, so those are examples, or that is an example of a structural change or organizational change. Process, so there are process changes. So if you're here, if you're familiar with like problem solving or process improvement methodologies, some of you have mentioned that that keyword earlier. So these are changes to the way work is done within an organization, such as the introduction of new systems, processes, or methods. So like if you're familiar with PDCA or Lean Six Sigma, so these are the changes that are associated to that. If you improve something, then you have to update your work instruction. There's going to be some changes, so that's called a process change. There is also what we call the technological change. So these are introduction of new technology into an organization, such as new software, hardware, or system. Someone mentioned about software earlier. So for example, if you used to have like the traditional bandy clock, all right, where you punch in a time out when you go to work, and then there has been like a biometric system that has been introduced. So that's an example of a technological change. If previously you're like using a manual system to record things, then it became automated. That's an example of technological change. Okay. Also, there is what we call the cultural change, changes to values, beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors of people within an organization. Say, for example, the organization or the company decided to um, embrace what is called agile. Before, they're not doing that as a mindset, as a culture, and then suddenly the management decided to, hey, let's try this agile thing. So there will be a change in the way how the organization works, culture-wise. Also, we have strategic changes to the overall strategy of an organization, such as changes to the organization's vision, mission, or objectives. So, for example, here at Astex, from time to time, we review our strategic objectives or strategy. So whenever what's applicable with the changes in the environment, or in the economic environment and other aspects of the business, we revisit and revise if there's a need to. There's also operational changes. So changes to the day-to-day operations of an organization, such as changes to work schedule, procedures, or routines. So this is something that is aligned with process. So if we talk about process, this is process, and something larger than that, that's going to be operation. So if ever there are changes in the process, there might be some aligned changes in the operations. And of course, there is market changes to the external environment of an organization, such as changes in the market, competition, and regulations, just like what I'm talking about, something that's aligned with strategic. So these are common types of changes that we are experiencing day in, day out in our lives as a student and as a professional. Now, having all those changes, of course, it's hard for us if we just jump into it, and we don't have anything that we have, or we don't equip ourselves with things that could help us out to navigate through the change. You might be hearing the phrase navigating through the change, because it's really how it goes. It's quite funny, since it was introduced to us as early as a decade ago, when we are still students of industrial engineering from my alma mater, from our alma mater, that one of the hardest things that you will be encountering in the outside world, in the real life scenarios, would be the resistance to change. For you to implement a successful, like, let's say, project that involves change, and pretty much virtually all of all of projects involves change, right? So now, what is change management? Okay, so let's look at it this way. Change management is the process of planning and implementing change in organizations in order to achieve specific goals and objectives. So if you can see here, these are related words, just like the word cloud that we were able to use. So it's stated here that it's a process. There's a structure to it. It's a structured approach that we follow. And later on, I'll be showing you some famous frameworks and models that we use when we try to manage and navigate through change. Now, what is the process that we're talking about, right? So this is a generic process that I will be sharing with you. And later on, again, there will be some specialized or specific models that we can use or utilize. So this is how the change management process looks like. So it involves a systematic approach to dealing with the transition or transformation of an organization from its current state, from its current state to a desired future state. So for example, we are now, let's say for example, we are in a warehouse. And in that warehouse, we are doing the transactions manually. Okay, we don't have a system that is in place. And because of that, there are a lot of complaints, there are a lot of errors and problems that arise. So the management of the warehouse decided that they will be acquiring a system, let's say for example SAP, to manage the transactions within the warehouse. So that particular current state of not having that effective system, computer system or software, and that desired state of us in the warehouse being able to use that particular software to manage the entire warehouse. That's the 2 points that we would want to connect, or that's the current to desired future state that we would want to achieve. So that particular example will go through this 5-phase of process or approach. First, we need to identify the need for change. Why is there a need for us to move from manual to using SAP, okay, or a warehouse management system perhaps? Okay? In this phase, we're trying to identify the reasons why there is a need for change to happen. So we're talking about what is the higher level perspective of why doing the change. Okay. Now, if it's clear already, we have identified that, okay, we need to do this because there are a lot of problems associated without the use of this particular system. Okay. Now, the next phase would be planning for the change. And just like any other framework, let's say, for example, in project management or in any other management approaches, planning has been one of the most useful phase, because there's this planning and allotment of resources that happens. Okay, so we plan for the change, and there are tools and techniques that we can use. One would be, of course, the change management plan. So this is where we plan how we would want to implement, who are the people who will be involved, at what level are the involvement will be, what type of resources, when is the resources needed, and how will we communicate. Okay, so we plan for that. Okay, once the plan is now completed, we of course communicate what will happen. Okay, so we are communicating to what we call stakeholders, people who will be affected by the change. So based on my experience, communication is really one game changer. So you could be very good in some technical tools or such, but if you're not well versed in terms of communication, we're not saying that you have to be very good in speaking English or writing and all that, but you have to be familiarized and comfortable with communicating in many forms. So that is because change um, requires a lot of communication. Okay? And while you're communicating it, of course, the next thing would be implementing the actual change that you would want to do. So you're now, you'd say, okay, I've planned already that the software will do this and that, will be implementing this and that. So you'll try to communicate. You'll call for a meeting or you'll announce through emails. And then once everyone is now familiar, once everyone is now familiar or aware of the change, then you implement it. So you'll start migrating from this old practice to the new practice or to the new warehouse management system. Okay, and once it has been completed, everything that has been planned has been implemented. Next would be evaluating the change. So is the change that we were able to introduce has been successfully implemented? So are people now using the software effectively? Are people now not having problems anymore with transactions in the warehouse because SAP, for example, or SAP has been implemented? So we have to evaluate what has been the impact of the change. And this particular framework here is the generic framework that we could use when we are trying to implement change. And of course, as mentioned reiteratively, there are some other specific models that we will be covering in the meanwhile. Okay. Now, why change management is important? Okay? Why do we need to, resort to using change management? And here are some of the reasons. Okay. Number one is increase success rates. Okay. Of course, if there's a structure on what we're doing, let's say, for example, change management in this particular case, there's going to be an increased success rate to making that happen if we have change management in place, because we have like a structure that we can follow. We have, or we can achieve improved alignment. So whatever whatever you have started, or wherever you have started that particular change, let's say for example you need this because there's a lot of problems that we're encountering without a proper system in place. So if there's no change management process involved, then you cannot align easily what you want to do to the rest of the people inside your organization. And also there's going to be better employee engagement, because when there's change management, it's written there that in the structure that you have to involve people, you have to communicate with people. And if the plan for change has been communicated, of course there's going to be employee engagement. We're expecting employee engagement, compared of course if there's no communication that happened as part of your change management strategy, right? There's going to be increased efficiency. So for example, if we follow this structure here, the change management process, it will lead to a successful implementation of the warehouse management system, and then it will result to increased efficiencies. Okay, improve adaptability. So people can easily adapt because you were able to touch important points in the change management journey, okay, following the approach. Of course, one thing that I've mentioned earlier, resistance, and this is very common. It's easy for us to, let's say, think of improvements, think of changes that would be beneficial to the organization. But the thing is that it's very hard for us to influence people, especially if we don't follow a structured approach. Okay, there's going to be a lot of resistance that will happen because, for example, if you remember the 5 phase. Okay, so there's planning, there's communication, there's implementation. Okay, but if you don't do any of this, or if you skip one of this phase, okay, what will happen? There's a tendency that there's gonna be an increased resistance to the changes that you're introducing, or to the change that you're introducing. And of course, risk management, because if you follow a proper change management approach, there are cases that, just like in project management, there are phases that would ask you to do an appropriate risk assessment, and for you to be able to manage it as early as possible. So these are some of the important benefits that you can get in applying, of course, a structured change management. Okay. Now let's look into some use cases of who are the businesses who have been successful and not have been successful in implementing or embracing change. And these are only some of the notable, okay? Some of the notable companies. So let's start with companies who fail to adapt to change. And maybe you have like ideas. Before I go to the next slide, can you think of like a company that you've heard from business news, or any kind of platform, let's say article from the internet, or like a television news, or like an educational content that you've run through that stated that this organization failed to embrace or adopt the change before them, which led them to to be bankrupt, or to close their business, or operations. Can you think of like brands or business or companies before I reveal this notable ones that I have here in my presentation? So you can type your answers, of course, in our rather in our Zoom chat box. Okay, we have here MySpace and BlackBerry. We have Motorola. We have Nokia and Microsoft. Okay. Thank you for your participation and answers. Okay. Some of them are part of my notable ones. Thank you to those who have provided their insights. So let's look into some of the organizations, some notable one, and how they failed to adapt. Okay. Number one here on my list is Kodak. So if you're familiar with Kodak, they're a very popular brand of film brand. Okay. So before, of course, the digital cameras. So Kodak was once the dominant player in the film photography industry, but Kodak failed to adapt to the digital photography revolution and ultimately filed for bankruptcy. Okay, because they haven't been into that space, maybe even late of the adoption. They haven't maybe accepted that, hey, there's something into this. That's why they've been left out there. Okay. Blockbuster. Here in the Philippines, I think there's like a similar brand. I cannot remember the name, but there's a similar like business model. So Blockbuster was once the largest video rental chain in the world, but the company failed to respond to the shift to online streaming and digital downloads, and eventually went out of business. Okay. We have Sears. Sears was once one of the largest department store chains in the US, but the company failed to respond to changes in consumer shopping habits and online competition, and eventually filed for bankruptcy. Okay. We also have Radio Shack. Radio Shack was once a leading electronics retailer, but the company failed to adapt to changes in technology and consumer preferences, and eventually filed for bankruptcy. And someone mentioned about, or two people mentioned about BlackBerry, a very popular phone brand for executives, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe around 10 years ago. BlackBerry was once a dominant player in the smartphone market, but the company failed to respond to the rise of iPhones and Android devices, and eventually had to reinvent itself as a software and service company. So they failed to embrace on that particular business area, but they somehow pivoted. So these are some of the notable ones. So you can see this, most of them are brought by changes in the environment or in the technological landscape as we speak. Now, if there are businesses who fail to adapt to change, there are, of course, businesses who are, flexing their status of being organizations who successfully adapted to change. And here are some, of course. And, I haven't asked you because I'm expecting that you'll be giving this as your answers. Of course, there's Apple, who've been introducing, iPhone brands almost every year, if I'm not mistaken. So Apple has been able to successfully adapt to change by continually innovating and introducing new products and services such as the iPhone, iPad, and Apple Watch. Of course, Amazon. Amazon has been able to successfully adapt to the change by expanding its business model from a single online bookstore, which, by the way, of course, they are still maintaining, to a full-fledged e-commerce platform offering a wide range of products and services. And they, managed to shift also, or not shift, but to venture also into technology platforms like the AWS and that. And we also have, of course, the very famous one, Netflix. Netflix has been able to successfully adapt to change by transitioning from a DVD by mail service to a leading online streaming platform. Okay. Google, of course, we have Google has been able to successfully adapt to change by expanding its core search engine business into new markets such as online advertising, cloud computing, and mobile devices. And Walmart has been able to successfully adapt to change by expanding its brick and mortar retail model to include online shopping, home delivery, and mobile apps. So basically, they are not the ones, maybe not all of them are like the early adapters and all that. Some of them are like in the mid part of the adoption. But I think one thing that has been proven is when you're an early adopter, there is a higher probability that you will be successful in adapting and embracing that change. And you can, like, you learn earlier than the competition, and you can like deliver products and services that could change the game or the landscape of the game. Okay, so these are some of the notable ones. Of course, there's gonna be a lot, especially nowadays that we have a lot of startups around. When they see that there's an opportunity, they disrupt the way how we do things, how we process things and all that. Okay. Now, with all those things that are happening, the changes, the innovations, the transformations, the improvements, the problems that are being solved around us, why do we still fear change? Or what are the reasons why we fear change? Okay, that is the question. Okay? Now, in the chat box, in here at Zoom, and even in our YouTube channel, can you share on a personal level, why do you fear change? If, let's say, for example, if you're a student, why do you fear change in the setup of your school or university? If you're a professional, why do you fear change why do you fear changes inside your organization, in your line of work, or maybe even the change in your immediate superior? Okay? Because of uncertainty. Okay? Fear of new things. Okay? Getting out of the comfort zone. Okay? Fear of changing your norms or habits. Fear to take risk. Okay? All right. So these are very good answers. Thank you for your participation. Now, I think you were able to guess the contents of my next slide. So why do people fear change? Uncertainty. Definitely uncertainty. Okay? We fear change because of uncertainty. What do we mean by uncertainty? Because change often brings uncertainty, and people may be afraid of the unknown outcomes, as just like what you've shared, or consequence of the change that is about to happen. Okay? What else? Loss of control. People may feel, or we may feel that we have lost control of the usual environment that we're operating, and and what the future holds for us. So this can cause like uncomfortableness, okay, anxiety and fear. Okay, what else? Loss of comfort. Okay, I mentioned it, I preempted it. So change can disrupt familiar patterns. We're comfort zone, where we used to do this. This is how we do it for the last 20 years. Why do we need to change? Okay, because that level of comfort, okay, will definitely go, or will go away. It will be, replaced by something else, right? Fear of failure. Okay, we're afraid to that we will be failing to adapt, that we will not be successful in the process of adapting these changes that are coming to us. Okay, and by failing, that would cause like negative consequences. Okay, what else? Someone mentioned about this fear of failure, also fear of the unknown, or fear of unknown. Okay, we are simply afraid because we don't, you know we we don't understand what we don't know. Okay, so and that, gives this level of resistance, that this is one of the main driver of the resistance to changes, because we fear something that we don't know, right? And of course there's going to be some cases that we fear change because of fear of loss. Okay, um maybe the change, where we're afraid that this change could mean that we will lose our job, or maybe lose our business, or maybe lose our position. Okay, and other things that we're very familiar with. So that's why we don't want to move from this old state to the new state. And these are some of the reasons why we fear change. Okay? And that's basically why we need change management, okay, or a structured change management approach. Okay. Now, talking about that, what are the top frameworks, methods, tools that we can use for change management? Now, I'll be sharing with you maybe four or five models that you can subscribe to when you are doing change management. Unfortunately, I will not be sharing some specific templates, but if you're interested enough, and if you will petition for it, we might be doing another masterclass focusing on specific tools. Okay, but for this case, we're talking about frameworks and models. Okay, and the first one is what we call the Lewin's change management model. So this model is developed by Kurt Lewin, one of the earliest and most widely used models for change management. And it involves three main stages: unfreeze, change, and refreeze. So what are the activities within each phase? The first phase would be unfreeze. So just like if you go back and map it to the generic change management process or approach, they will all be mappable, and the rest of the frameworks also, they are mappable to that 5-phase model. So under unfreeze, there's going to be recognition of the need for change, determination of what needs to change, and this fall into the identification of change, if you can still remember. Encourage the replacement of old behaviors and attitudes. Ensure there is strong support for management, and manage and understand the doubts and concerns. So typically, unfreeze is basically the first phase if we follow the 5-phase model. This is identification for the need for change. Okay. The next phase under Lewin's model will be change, and this is composed of 3 steps: plan the changes, implement the changes, and help employees to learn new concepts or points of views or points of view. So this one, if you read between the lines, this talks about what? This talks about the planning phase of the general or the generic change management framework. It also involves the communication and the actual implementation. And last phase under Lewin's change model would be refreeze. It involves changes, reinforcing the changes, integrating changes into the normal way of doing things, developing ways of to sustain the change, and of course, celebration of success. And this is more of the evaluation phase of the generic framework for change management. Okay, so that's Lewin's change model. Next would be, and this is personally, this is something that I use most of the cases. This is called ADKAR model. This was introduced by an organization for change management called ProSci. This was developed by Jeff Hyatt, is a 5-step model that focuses on helping individuals and organizations achieve desired outcomes through change. So ADKARS stands for awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. So first thing would be building the awareness to people that will be affected by the change. So we're talking about um, identifying what is working and not working for my organization, what are the alternatives, communicating that there's a problem, and focusing on the most important reasons why we need to venture to the change. So that's awareness level. You're giving an idea to people that, hey, these are the reasons, this is why we need to do the change. Desire, this is communicating the benefits, why we need to let's say adapt with certain levels of changes that needs to happen. What are the risks that would be involved, and making sure that this risks are um, identified, and there are mitigation actions that has been created or generated for them. Building momentum and addressing fears, because of, you've seen that, naturally speaking, people are afraid of change. So we have to deal with that people side of change. Okay? Knowledge, of course, we have to make sure that the necessary knowledge related to the change that needs to happen will be always in place. Okay, so there will be learning this technical skills or training people. Okay, um, sharing information. Okay, and putting reasonable targets. And of course, if there's going to be knowledge building, you have to ensure that there's the right level of ability to use or to navigate through that change. So there's going to be like checking whether you let's say, for example, if you're part of that change that is happening, do you know how to navigate it already? Can we try it first? Can we just create the first few success stories? Okay, and then from there we will implement it full scale. Once it has been implemented, there's going to be reinforcement. So of course, during the implementation, there's going to be a lot of communication. Okay, just to remind everyone. And then there's going to be reinforcement. So we have to engage people, we have to reward and recognize them, we have to celebrate the successful change. So that's how the ADKAR model works. We also have the Kotter's 8-step change model. This one, there's a book that is related to this, and the book is entitled Our Iceberg is Melting. It's a very good book that teaches basics of change management, and it's like a picture book, and the main characters are penguins. Okay, so you have to check it out. Our Iceberg is Melting. So the Kotter's 8-step change model is developed by John Kotter and outlines 8 steps that organizations can follow to successfully implement change. And these are the 8 steps. So first would be creating or establishing the feeling of urgency that you need to change. Number 2 is building coalition. So you have to, let's say, okay, we have to migrate from this old system to this new system, and you need allies. Okay, you need allies to make that happen. And then you form what will be the overall change strategy. Next would be you have to communicate that, hey, this is how the change will happen. This is why we need to do this. You have to reiterate always and always why you are doing the change. Why do you need to do the change? What will happen during the change? You have to make people feel safe during the change in such a way that you can tell them that you have identified risk, and there are things that are in place that would not make the effect of this risk even further, or if they happen, you have like actions that you can take into that you can take into. Okay, Number 5, enabling or empower employees for taking action to incorporate change. So this involves training and building of capabilities. Generating, okay, this is more of the goal of the change. So just like in project management, change management, you can cut your milestones into smaller ones. Sustaining, once you've created that success story, okay, so that you can continue from one milestone to another, you have to sustain and eventually institute or incorporate this new state from the old state that we were able to replace. This new state we have to institutionalize or make it the new way of how we do things, or the new, let's say, framework that we use, the new department structure that we use, the new system that we are using, and all that. Okay, and that is how Kotter's 8-step change model works. And last but not the least is McKinsey 7S framework. So McKinsey is a very famous consulting firm. So they developed this tool for analyzing an organization's structure and identifying areas for change. So in the middle of this 6 circles here, we have the shared values, and it has been divided into hard and soft S. So hard S contains the strategy, the structure, and the systems that are being used inside the organization. And the soft S includes the skills, the staff, and the style of, or the culture probably, of the organization. So this one is like a guiding tool for you to be able, as it is stated there, structure for identifying areas for change. Okay, and the first 3 talks about a specific structured approach, step-by-step approach, when you would want to facilitate the change in an organization or in your process or in your department and such. So, but then again, as mentioned, these are mappable. These are steps that could be mapped out, especially the first 3, Lewin, Scudder, and Adkar model, to the generic 5-phase model of change management. Okay. Now let's talk about what are the top challenges in change management and what are some things that we can do. Okay, I have here like 8. Okay, I have here 8 top challenges when we're doing change management or when we are navigating through change. First one in the list is resistance to change. We have lack of clear communication. We have poor leadership, inadequate planning, limited resources, lack of employee buy-in, technical difficulties, and insufficient training. Some of them are items that I was able to touch into, but for us to reinforce and for us to calibrate, here are the challenges. I will be discussing each of them together with some workarounds that we can do on how to address them. Number 1, of course, is resistance to change. And this, I've been mentioning it reiteratively throughout the session that we have, we have this natural tendency to resist change, right? So what can we do to address this? Engage employees in the change process and provide clear communication about the reasons for change and how it will benefit them. So how can we do that? In a regular organization, there's a lot of communication tools that is being used. Okay, for people, especially if the change is like an organizational change. So, for example, if just like merger and acquisition, if you've been acquired by a bigger company, your company has been acquired by a bigger company, so there's going to be some changes in like the roles, as like what I've mentioned earlier. So you have to communicate it very clear so that people will not be resistant to it, like asking you, why do we need to change? They will ask that if they don't understand why are these changes happening. So you have to communicate and communicate and communicate. There's a lot of like GMMs. There's just going to be like frequent town halls or even posters, okay? And even emails and even one-on-one check-ins with your employees. If you're a boss or if you're an employee, you've experienced this, that you've been asked to go to your boss office and explain, and your boss will explain what's happening, right? Address their concerns and fears by involving them in the decision making and planning. Okay, and this is very important. I can still remember this time that we've been, undergoing the changes, organizational change, we were always being asked, what are your fears? What are your hesitations? What are your reservations? And then they collect this, and they try to answer this as transparent as possible. That, hey, if you're worried about your job, don't worry that this particular change that is happening will not affect that. And if it's something that is compromising that job, they're also transparent. So, um, but they provide like some level of assurance that they will try their best to be, to involve them in this particular process, and in the next steps that will happen. Okay, provide training and support to help employees adapt to the new processes and systems. Sometimes, just like for example, if it's a new system or software, they don't, and you're too, let's say you're not too young for this software and systems, what happens? They tend to like fight or flight risk. They tend to flight, and not to entertain anything new, because they've been using the system for like what, 20 years. So you just have to make them see what are the benefits also, and try to, and of course make sure, not try, but make sure that they will be able to navigate through the new system. Okay, that's why training is needed. Now, not only training, but ensuring that the ability has been established. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, lack of clear communication. So if you can see here, the other person talks about a rollerblades, but the other person talks about an ice skating blade or shoe, right? So as mentioned, communication is a very critical, skill set, not only in change management, but also in project management, in every management skill set. It's one of the foundational one. Okay, so how do we go around it? Develop a clear and concise communication plan. I always teach this to my mentees. Whenever there's a project that you're gonna do, because projects, as I mentioned earlier, they involve changes, and there's gonna be change management inside project management. You have to prepare a very clear and concise communication plan, and you have to cover what you want to, let's say for example, what do you intend to deliver, what is the message that you would want to give, what is your expected response, how you would want to communicate, who will communicate, what is the form, what is the frequency, and all that. That will make your life easier, especially when you are implementing the change. Okay, you have to ensure that all stakeholders understand the change and its implications, especially those stakeholders. So when we talk about stakeholders, again, these are people who will be affected by the change that will happen. So you have to make sure that these stakeholders know what will happen or what is happening before, after, and after, before, during, and after the change. Okay. What else? Use a variety of communication channels to reach all stakeholders and encourage two-way communication. So it's very important for you to integrate those communication channels. Some stakeholders during the change, they would want to be very involved. Some might not have that same level. So if you can research stakeholder management analysis tool, that will help you out in addressing communication issues during a specific change that is happening. And always get for feedback. You don't have to communicate in a one-way channel or in a one-way setup. You have to ask for feedback, whether, say for example, you're changing the system, okay, the manual to, let's say, using the warehouse management system. How they are how are they are feeling. Okay, use empathy, okay, to learn what are their difficulties, if there is any. Sometimes people will not tell you that they're having difficulties because they're like quite hesitant, and to be judged by other people, saying that, hey, you don't know how to use that, and this, you were not able to navigate through the change successfully, just like we did. So you have to be very, very cautious about that, and you have to address that. Okay, especially if you're leader of the change, or if you're the change manager or change agent. Okay. Next, of course, poor leadership will be one of the main challenges. And just like in any other management facets, okay, management support and buy-in is very important. So let's say, for example, if you want to change something in your department, but your manager does not support you, okay, it's something that would be very hard. Okay. And if we scale that up, so we're talking about GMs, executives, VPs, okay, senior directors. If you don't have their buy-in, if you don't have their support, that's gonna be hard to do that change. So you have to make sure that the leadership provides strong, decisive, and visible leadership that sets the direction and tone for the change. That's why whenever there's some changes in the organization, who is the first person that talks about it? It's pretty much the president or the GM or the CEO, right? Because it's how it should work. Okay? Ensure that leaders are actively involved in the change process and communicate with employees regularly. As I've given as an example earlier, when we had this change in the organization, it's like twice or even thrice in a week that we are being we are being asked to attend this meeting for calibration and just to make sure that we are all on the same page on this particular change. Develop leaders who can inspire and motivate others to embrace change. So you, for example, you are the leader of the change, you're the change leader. So you have to, again, empathy. You have to be not, there's going to be tools and techniques, but of course, I don't know if I mentioned this already during this session, but more to the tools and techniques, it's really the people side of it. So the leadership capability in you integrated with those tools and techniques is something that is important so that you can motivate and inspire people to embrace the change. Okay? Next, there's going to be issues with planning, inadequate planning. And this is what I'm talking about earlier. We have to develop, if we need a communication plan for, to address lack of communication, inadequate planning would involve this change management plan, okay? Which outlines all the necessary steps and contingencies. It's like, the plan that involves everything. I mean, from how you would communicate, what will be the risk, how would you address that possible risk or potential risk, what are the resources involved when they are needed. So even your schedule and all that's part of your overall comprehensive change management plan. Okay, so as mentioned earlier, it will talk about potential impact of the changes or risk to your employees, systems, processes, and organization as a whole. So if you haven't had that plan, or if you haven't had that anticipated in your plan, that's going to be a problem. You haven't anticipated that there could be people who will, commit errors using this new process, but you haven't, prepared any mitigation for that. That's going to be a problem. Okay. And of course, whenever you are implementing your plan, so make sure that there's also enough monitoring of that is in place. Okay, monitor progress and adjust the plan as needed. Okay, next, limited resources. Okay, so when you're navigating through change, let's say even if it's an acquisition or adaptation of a new software, let's say, or a new or an improved process, there's going to be limitation to the resources. So what you need to do as part of your planning phase is to make sure that they're all accounted for. So that involves every possible resources that you can think of. Okay, prioritization of what needs to be done is, it's a basic, it's a fundamental, I would say fundamental skill set, prioritization, that you need to develop, especially when you are into change management. Consider outsourcing or partnering with other organizations to help manage the change. That's why in some other models like the Qatar model, 8-step Qatar model, it's building alliance. Okay, so you have to build alliance so that you can of course, spread also the risks, spread the or divide the labor, and of course, you can like share resources if the resources are limited. Okay. Next, lack of employee buy-in. So if there's going to be buy-in towards or upward, so meaning you asking for buy-in from the leaders, so leaders are also asking for buy-in from their employees. Okay, because for example, if it's an organizational change that we're talking about, so if we want to move from this state to another, we would want to, let's say, use this new technology. People, your employees, they are the one who is using the process, using these technologies, and if they decide not to use it, what will happen? There's going to be, if there's a lot or there's a high level of resistance, what will happen? There's going to be disruption in the way you do things in your business. So that's why employee buy-in is very important. If you're here, you're a leader, or you're seeing yourself as a future leader, so you have to make sure that you have that charisma to engage employees. Okay, you have that ability to influence them by telling them clearly why do you need to do this and that. Okay, we're talking about addressing concerns, which we were able to take into account earlier. And of course, there's going to be assurance that you would provide the necessary training so that people can adapt to these changes. Okay, and of course, if there are changes, new system maybe has been introduced or implemented, there are some technical difficulties. Okay, so that's why you need to have a risk management plan prepared. Okay. And of course, during the process, you have to make sure that you are always or someone is always available to assist them through these technical difficulties. Else, it could be um, a great source for a potential failure to 100% adaptation of the change that you would want to provide or to deliver. Insufficient training, as given here, if you don't have enough training for the changes, that's why whenever we do process changes, whenever we do system changes, what's not being missed out? Training. Okay, because that's, if you go to ADKAR model, let's say that's knowledge and ability. Okay, knowledge and ability phases. Okay, so that's the 8 challenges in usual challenges, common challenges in change management. So we have resistance to change, lack of clear communication, poor leadership, inadequate planning, limited resources, lack of employee buy-in, technical difficulties, and insufficient training. And I hope I was able to share with you some of the best practices and practical things that are being done whenever you or whenever you encounter these kinds of challenges. And with that, I think I was able to complete my job for tonight. Let's continue to be #significantly better through effective change management practice. I am now open to any questions that you might have. Thank you. All right. So what are your questions, or what questions do you have? Maybe we could spend like the next 5 minutes if there is any, since I go overboard for my allotted time. Are there any questions that you might want to ask? All right, so we have here a question from Zoom. We have one from Mark Raphael. So The question is, how can we manage people that resist change? Okay, thank you for that question. Of course, as I mentioned, in the change management process, people is actually the component that you would want to focus most. Okay, and this involves a lot of communication. There's going to be a lot of telling them why is it what's the business case of doing all of these things, all of these changes, and all that. And sometimes you having the buy-in would be enough if the leaders are telling you to do it. Most of the cases you will do it. There's going to be the resistance at first, and there's a curve. I haven't put it here, but there's a curve which you can see that there's like pretty much 5 to 10% of the entire population who will easily adopt with the change, or who will easily embrace the change. But like the lump sum, like 80% of them would be people who are resisting. Okay, and maybe the latter 10%, 5 to 10%, these are late adapters who would not um accept the change or embrace the change unless otherwise the majority have done it. Okay, so it's really a matter of communicating with these people the importance, and making sure that whatever concerns they have in this particular change management, or change that you and these people are experiencing, will be addressed as smoothly as possible. I hope I was able to answer your question. That's why you need to identify their levels of powers and interests. The stakeholder analysis tool could help you out. I think I was able to address also this question from Neil. How do we deal with these workers that are hesitant to change? So again, communication, and involve them. Ask for their opinions. During the process, you have to make them feel that they're part of the change that is happening. Okay, involve them, engage them, so that they would feel empowered. Okay. Yes, I think it's okay to have a copy of the PDF, Francis. From team, hi Sir Lex. I would like to ask, how can we embed a culture of change or continuous improvement to my colleagues, considering that I am new to the organization? Well, of course, you mentioned about culture. I mean, culture is something that happens in a long period of time. So it takes too many resources, and investment. Okay, investment, especially in trying to influence them to do or to think the way you are thinking. And if I learned one thing about the integration of everything in terms of continuous improvement, process uh process improvement, problem solving, project management, change management, it's pretty much about the creation of a success story. If people see that you've created something that's working, or if you're using something that's working, I think it's a good it's like setting a good example. So if they see that, hey, Felix is using this, Felix is using this particular mindset of continuous improvement, it's delivering good things to his process, is making his process easier and faster. So why not we do the same, something like that? So first, create a success story and try to share how you did it to your colleague, and hopefully that could um enable the motivation that they need to do the same. Okay. Thank you, Miss Angelina Oliciano, for that compliment. From Alvin, how can we know if we are ready for change? Well, fun is that um, we cannot be 100% ready for change. I mean, there are planned changes, there are unplanned changes, right? very good example is that when the pandemic hit us, it brought changes to us. It's not planned, so we were, we can tell that we're ready, or no one is ready for that, right? But it's a change that happened. Now, for planned change, I think it's the reason why there's planning. You have to like um list down what do you need to do for this change. What are the things that you need to deliver so that you can say that there has been a successful change that happened. Okay. So what are the resources do you need to move from the old state to the new state, or to the current future state? So I think it's like having like a checklist of the things that you need to do, the resources, and I think there's a like a change management checklist that is available. If you could like um have some time to send me a PM via Facebook or LinkedIn, we can talk more about it. And speaking of LinkedIn, I would of course request you guys if you could follow me at LinkedIn. I'm gonna drop my LinkedIn profile URL here at our Zoom channel, so that we will stay connected, because I'm doing a lot of talks, especially moving forward. So you might want to attend some of my talks if you find this talk or session beneficial to you, and to what you are doing, or what do you plan to do in the future. Okay? I hope I was able to answer your questions, and with the time that is available for us, I guess I'm gonna give the floor back to our moderators. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you so much, Sir Lex. A lot of knowledge that we acquired tonight is very timely and helpful to every employee and soon to be employees here. I think we have a lot of student participants right now. All right, I think our audience now are ready for our evaluation form. So guys, our evaluation form will be posted in the comment section. So don't forget to fill out the evaluation form because it will serve as your slot to get your certificate. The link will automatically close 30 minutes after today's event. So now I think we are near to the last part of our event. This is the time you may say thanks to our very own Sir Felix Beroya for tonight. So just chat it on the chat box below. And again, tonight's episode is made possible with the help of our supportive and generous partners, IXL, Grace Apparel, To Us, Startup Podcast, and Ingeniero.org. Of course, another way you can effectively learn and be significantly better with us is by enrolling now on our online courses and self-paced programs. Of course, we have the Yellow Belt. It is the entry level to the Lean Six Sigma practice. Basic diagnostic and quality tools and techniques are taught in this program. Join the next round on February 25, 26, and March 4 and March 5. And we have our self-paced also for Yellow Belt. Finish your course anytime and anywhere. Next is the Green Belt. The role of Green Belt is highly focused on problem solving, process analysis, and project management applied to his line of work. Join the next run on March 4, 5, 11, 12, 18, 19, 25, 26, and April 1. And of course, we also have our self-paced Green Belt. Who is Lean Six Sigma Black Belt? Black belts have a thorough understanding of all aspects of the DMAIC model in accordance of Six Sigma principles. Join the next run this March 4 to 5 until April 8, 15, and 16. Project Management Fundamental Certification Program. This is online course is designed to help you adopt a a strategic mindset and grow confidence in making project decisions in an increasing volatile and uncertain world. Join the next run this February 25. Kaizen Professional or CKP. Understand the key concepts of Kaizen, gain knowledge on the management and practices of Kaizen, and a whole lot more. Of course, join the next run on February 25 and 26. And of course, we have our newest course, the Data Engineering Certification Program. And we will soon announce the updated date of this program. So this is the whole self-paced certification program that we offer. And of course, join as a group of 5, pay only for 4. Applicable for all self-paced and online courses. And of course, ASLEX PH Academy is still open for partners and ambassadors. If you support our cause of promoting lifelong learning, this is perfect for you. So visit our website to know more about the courses we offer, www.aslexph.com/courses. So that would be all for this event. So you may also like or join the group of ASLEX PH Academy Alumni Network Facebook page for exclusive announcements, discounts, and freebies. So we hate to say goodbye, but in every beginning, there's always an end. But don't be sad, everyone. We just hope to see you again next Friday for another Alpha TV session. Stay safe and good night. So as you can see in the screen, this is the QR code and the link. So I will just send the link on the comment section. All right, here it is. For the instruction, first, refresh and wait. Second, complete the form correctly. Third, middle initial not name. 4, enter correct email address. And lastly, e-certificates will be distributed in a week. So let's continue to be #significantly better through accessible and sustainable lifelong learning together. Follow us on all our social media accounts to be updated to all free courses like Alpha TV. So good night, everyone. Thank you so much.